Hare Krishna, welcome back to our online Bhagavad Gita reading retreat lab. So today we are going to start a new unit, a new chapter. That is the unit 2 and chapter number 7 of Bhagavad Gita. That is knowledge of the absolute. So in this chapter, before we start, we will be doing a small recap what we have seen in the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, it deals primarily with Karma Yoga, and this middle 6 chapters, that is your chapter number 7 till chapter number 12, these 6 chapters will be dealing with Bhakti Yoga, and the last 6 chapters, which we'll be covering in the unit number 3, with Jnana Yoga. So Lord Krishna has explained in chapter 6, we have seen that the yogi most intimately united with him was thinking of him within. Now, the 7th chapter explains how one can become such a Krishna conscious person by engaging in devotional service, and by engaging oneself in devotional service, one gains determined faith and becomes convinced that simply by such service, all his objectives will be fulfilled. So in today's session, we'll be covering from verse number 1 to verse number 7. We do have total 30 verses, and it will be divided into 3 different sessions. So today, we'll be focusing on from verse number 1 till verse number 7. So knowing Krishna in full by hearing about him. So in this chapter 7, Krishna begins to explain how to attain this state. Krishna urges Arjuna to hear with mind attached to him. Okay? So without any delay, now we will move to the Veda base. Let's go to Veda base chapter number 7. And as usual, we will be reading the translation and purpose only. The people who are in German language, they can also see the German translation, German purport side by side. So in the Veda base, if you have observed, there is a dual language view feature. So in this, you can use this dual language view. Suppose you are not comfortable in English. So along with English, you can have an option for different various languages like German, Spanish, Danish, Russian, Hungarian. But Indian languages are not there. So anyway, so maybe you can be the one of the person who can also contribute to this service for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna. So with that context, now let's move to the chapter number 7, verse number 1. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead says, now here, O son of Pritha, now we're practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Purport. In this 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the nature of Krishna consciousness is fully described. Krishna is full in all opulences, and how he manifests such opulences is described herein. Also, 4 kinds of fortunate people who become attached to Krishna, and 4 kinds of unfortunate people who never take to Krishna are described in this chapter. In the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the living entity has been described as non-material spirit soul capable of elevating himself to self-realization by different types of yogas. At the end of the 6th chapter, it has been clearly stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, or in other words, Krishna consciousness, is the highest form of all yoga. By concentrating one's mind upon Krishna, one is able to know the absolute truth completely, but not otherwise. Impersonal Brahmayoti or localized Paramatma realization is not perfect knowledge of the absolute truth because it is partial. Full and scientific knowledge is Krishna, and everything is revealed to the person in Krishna consciousness. In complete Krishna consciousness, one knows that Krishna is ultimate knowledge beyond any doubt. Different types of yoga are only stepping stones on the path of Krishna consciousness. One who takes directly to Krishna consciousness automatically knows about Brahmajyoti and Paramatma in full. By practice of Krishna consciousness yoga, one can know everything in full, namely the absolute truth, the living entities, the material nature, and their manifestations with paraphernalia. One should therefore begin yoga practice as directed in the last verse of the sixth chapter. Concentration of the mind upon Krishna, the Supreme, is made possible by prescribed devotional service in 9 different forms, of which Sravanam is the first and most important. The Lord therefore says to Arjuna, Tastrunu, or hear from me. No one can be a greater authority than Krishna, and therefore, by hearing from him, one receives the greatest opportunity to become a perfectly Krishna conscious person. One is therefore to learn from Krishna directly or from a pure devotee of Krishna, and not from a non devotee of stat, puffed up with academic education. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this process of understanding Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is described in the second chapter of the first canto as follows. So we'll read only the translation of this. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as the best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. When these impurities were wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yoga was the heart knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of Asamsayam Samagram, understanding the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead. Bhagavatam 1.2.17 to 221. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Now we will move to the next verse. Chapter number 7, verse number 2, translation. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being nothing further, this being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Purport. Complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This is transcendental knowledge. The Lord wants to explain the above mentioned system of knowledge because Arjuna is Krishna's confidential devotee and friend. In the beginning of the fourth chapter, this explanation was given by the Lord, and it is again confirmed here. Complete knowledge can be achieved only by the devotee of the Lord in disciplic succession directly from the Lord. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to know the source of all knowledge, who is the cause of all causes and the only object for meditation and all types of yoga practice. When the cause of all causes becomes known, then everything knowable becomes known and nothing remains unknown. The Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.3 says, Kasminya Bhagavo Vijanti Sarvam Idam Jnantam Bhavatiti. Now we'll move to the next verse, chapter number 7, verse number 3. Translation. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Purport. There are various grades of men, and out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is a self, what is a body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the super self, and the process of realization by Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization. For this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is a supreme person, but at the same time, he is beyond the knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. The yogis and jnanis are confused in their attempt to understand Krishna. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripada Shankaracharya, has admitted in his Gita commentary that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, his followers do not accept Krishna as such, for it is very difficult to know Krishna even though one has transcendental realization of impersonal Brahman. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the primeval Lord Govinda. Ishvaraha Paramakrishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. It is very difficult for the non-devotee to know him, although non-devotees declare that the path of bhakti or devotional service is very easy. They cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti is so easy as the non-devotee class of men proclaim, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti practiced by unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti may be easy, but when it is practiced factually according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from the path. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.101, we will read only the translation. Devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and the Narad Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. It is not possible for the Brahman realized impersonalist or the Paramatma realized yogi to understand Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, as the son of Mother Yashoda or the charioteer of Arjuna. Even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Muhyanti yat suraya, mam tu veda na kaschana. No one knows me as I am, the Lord says, and if one does know him, then her Mahatma Suhudurlavaha. Such a great soul is very rare. Therefore, unless one practices devotional service to the Lord, one cannot know Krishna as he is, Tatvataha. Even though one is a great scholar or philosopher, only the pure devotees can know something of the inconceivable transcendental qualities in Krishna. He is being the cause of all causes, his omnipotence and opulence, and his wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees, he is the last word in Brahman realization. And the devotees alone can realize him as he is. Therefore, it is said, we'll read only the translation. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. Bhakti Resham Sindhu 1.2.234. So now we'll move to the next verse, chapter number 7, verse number 4. Translation: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Purport: the science of God analyzes the constitutional position of God and his diverse energies. Material nature is called Prakriti, or the energy of the Lord in his different Purusha incarnations or expansions, is described in the Narada Pancharatra, one of the Sattva Tantras. So we'll read only the translation. For material creation, Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes 3 Vishnus. The first one, Mahavishnu, creates the total material energy known as the Mahatattva. The second, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, enters into all the universes to create the diversities in each of them. The third, Kshirodakshai Vishnu, is diffused as the all-pervading super soul in all the universes and is known as Paramatma. So he is present even within the atoms. Anyone who knows these 3 Vishnus can be liberated from material entanglement. So we will do a small activity here. We will go to the mind map and we'll capture this string in our verse number 4. So we are in the mind map. So let's go to the verse number 7. In the verse number 7, we found two notable points here. So we have seen Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes 3 Vishnus. So we will just capture as plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. Let's do that. Plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. And in that, we have seen there are 3 types. So the first one, so Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes 3 Vishnu. So first one is Mahavishnu. So we will copy this. First one is Mahavishnu. Then second one, which we have seen, that is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. We'll just a little bit maximize the screen. Yeah. Then the third one, which we have seen, that is Kshirodakshay Vishnu. So Mahavishnu is also known as Mahatattva. So that we will be writing in the comment section of this node. So if you double click on this, sorry, single click, and there is a comment section, and we will just mention that this is the first thing. Mahavishnu, he has a total material energy. He's also known as Mahatattva. So that way we can come back here, and if you go to the comment section, you can always refer this in the future. In the second part, we have seen Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So what does it say? Garbhodakshay Vishnu enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. So simply we'll mention, he enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. Then the third one, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, is diffused as the all-pervading super soul in all the universes, and he is also known as Paramatma. So in the first section, we'll be writing comment section that is diffused. For this like to edit, it is also an option to change. Diffused as the all-pervading super soul in all the universes. Second section, that is Kshirodakshay Vishnu, also known as Paramatma. He is present even within the atoms. Anyone who knows the three Vishnus can be liberated from material entanglement. So we must mention here, known as Paramatma. So just a minute. Yes. So now let's read. We'll continue our reading. So he is present even within the atom. Anyone who knows these three Vishnus can be liberated from material entanglement. This material world is the temporary manifestation of one of the energies of the Lord. All the activities of the material world are directed by these three Vishnu expansions of Lord Krishna. These Purushas are called incarnations. Generally, one who doesn't know the science of God, Krishna, assumes that this material world is for the enjoyment of the living entities, and that the living entities are the Purusas, the causes, controllers, and enjoyers of the material energy. According to Bhagavad Gita, this atheistic conclusion is false. In the verse under discussion, it is stated that Krishna is the original cause of the material manifestation. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this. These ingredients of the material manifestation are separated energy of the Lord. Even the Brahmayotis, which is the ultimate goal of the impersonalist, the spiritual energy manifested in the spiritual sky. There are no spiritual diversities in the Brahmajyoti as there are in the Vaikuntha Loka. And the impersonalist accepts this Brahmajyoti as the ultimate eternal goal. The Paramatma manifestation is also a temporary, all-pervasive aspect of the Kshirodakshay Vishnu. The Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. Therefore, the factual absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He is a complete energetic person, and he possesses different, separated, and internal energies. In the material energy, the principal manifestations are eight. As ever mentioned, out of these, the first five manifestations, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, are called the five gigantic creations or the gross creations, within which the five sense objects are included. They are the manifestations of physical sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Material science comprises these 10 items and nothing more. But the other three items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the material. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. The false ego, I am, and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahatattva. Therefore, from the eight separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya, atheistic philosophy. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energies and are separated from him. But atheistic Sankhya philosophers with a poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energy of Krishna as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Now we will move to the next verse, that is chapter number 7, verse number 5. Translation. Besides this, O mighty arm Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting this inferior energy for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. And it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy. The living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto 87.30 as follows. So we will read only the translation. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position, only can there be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme. But they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusions, thinks I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Now we'll move to the next verse, chapter number 7, verse number 6. Translation. All created beings have their source in these two natures of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Purpose. Everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. Spirit is the basic field of creation, and matter is created by spirit. Spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development. Rather, this material world is manifested only on the basis of spiritual energy. This material body is developed because spirit is present within matter. A child grows gradually to boyhood, then to manhood, because that superior energy, spirit soul is present. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation of a gigantic universe is developed because of the presence of its soul, Vishnu. Therefore, spirit and matter, which combine to manifest a gigantic universal form, are originally two energies of the Lord. And consequently, the Lord is the original cause of everything. A fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, namely the living entity, may be the cause of a big skyscraper, a big factory, or even a big city, but he cannot be the cause of a big universe. The cause of the big universe is the big soul or the super soul. And Krishna, the Supreme, is the cause of both the big and small souls. Therefore, he is the original cause of all causes. This is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 2.2.1c. Nityo Nityanam Chetana Chetanam. Now we will move to the next verse, chapter number 7, verse number 7. Translation. O conqueror of self, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Purport. There is a common controversy over whether the Supreme Absolute Truth is personal or impersonal. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and this is confirmed in every step. In this verse, in particular, it is stressed that the Absolute Truth is a person. That the personality of Godhead is the Supreme Absolute Truth is also the affirmation of the Brahma Samhita. Ishvaraha Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. That is the Supreme Absolute Truth personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, Govinda, and the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. These authorities leave no doubt that The absolute truth is the supreme person, the cause of all causes. The impersonalist, however, argues on the strength of the Vedic version given in the Sita Upanishad 3.10. So we'll read only the translation. In the material world, Brahma, the primeval living entity within the universe, is understood to be the supreme amongst the demigods, human beings, and lower animals. But beyond Brahma, there is a transcendence, one who has no material form and is free from all material contaminations. Anyone who can know him also becomes transcendental, but those who do not know him suffer the miseries of the material world. The impersonalist puts more stress on the word arupam, but this arupam is not impersonal. It indicates the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, is described in the Brahma Samhita quoted above. Other verses in the Siddhartha Upanishad 3.8 to 9 substantiate this as follows. We will read only the translation. I know that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of that Supreme Person. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest and he is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree and he illumines the translucent sky, and as the tree spreads its roots, he spreads his extensive energies. From these verses, one concludes that the Supreme Absolute Truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is all pervading by his multi energies, both material and spiritual. So, with this, we have completed the first section of our chapter number 7. So, I'll just minimize it. So we have seen in this section today, that is verse number 1 to verse number 7. So Krishna here basically urges Arjuna to hear with mind attached to him as he explains knowledge of himself. So that is in verse number 1 to 3 we have seen now. And from verse number 4 to 7, he explains how Krishna is the origin of everything, both material and spiritual. So in the next session, we will start with the verse number 8 till verse number 12, and we'll be try to understand how knowing Krishna as a source of both material and spiritual energy. So we will stop here. Hare Krishna.